Welcome to Leslie's Pool School. I'm Phil O'Haver and this is John Martin.
Hello.
Together we have over 30 years experience in the swimming pool industry, and we're here today to answer questions on our Leslie's blog. And today on this segment of Leslie's Pro Tips, we'll be talking a little bit about draining and refilling a swimming pool. A lot of questions around that, especially right now as we kind of get into season. A lot of customers asking us, what exactly do I need to do? What are some of the tips out there? And really how often do I need to be draining my swimming pool? So, John, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It's a very common question, and it's kind of nerve-wracking. I mean, draining a pool is expensive, depending on where you live. The cost to refill can be very expensive. And sometimes you get the feeling you walk into a store, and sometimes they say drain, and you're like, well, do I have to drain? Are there ways around it? And so we just want to establish today, just relatively quickly, what are the telltale signs, why we suggest you drain a pool, when we tell you to, when we suggest to drain a pool, and some tips on what not to do, because there are some times that you can actually damage the pool. So the primary reason that any of our stores would recommend you drain a pool is because of total dissolved solids. On our water test, I think it's abbreviated as TDS. We use a little electric meter, and all that really does is tells you the amount of material in the water that can't be filtered out. So it's very, 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 very small material. Over time, it sort of builds up from bather use, from dirt and debris getting in the pool, even chemicals that you put in. If you put in inferior chemicals, they'll leave more inert ingredients behind, junk in the water. That over time, it crowds the water to the point where chemicals can't work anymore, so it can't be safe. So over time, we can measure TDSs each time you're in and tell you, hey, it's about time for you to drain that pool. Now, this happens a little less frequently in markets that close their pools because they drain a good portion of the water and then they refill. So you're kind of replacing 20 or 30% of that water every off season. But in the Southwest, down into Texas, those areas, this is a much more common issue where the pools don't get drained as often.
Or even like in Florida where there's so much rain, there's almost an abundance of rain out in Florida.
Florida sort of makes you drain the pool because the water overflows, so it kind of refreshes. So you're draining less out there. But yeah, so when we test your total dissolved solids, or anywhere you go that tests that, they're going to tell you, hey, at a certain point, we say 2,500 parts per million is about that threshold that you should drain that pool. Anything over that, and you could still swim in the water. It's not necessarily unsafe, but you're going to be using more chemical. So as that number climbs, you're going to use more and more and more chemical. It's just going to get too expensive to keep that water safe. So we're going to recommend you drain it. But we got to be careful when you drain it. So right now we're filming, from sunny Arizona. It's 103 degrees outside. Can we drain right now?
No, absolutely not.
The answer is not, but why not?
Unless you want to damage your plaster, crack it, etch it, and then replaster your pool.
If you were eager to damage your pool, that would be a great time to drain it. But all kidding aside, that plaster is designed to be underwater, not exposed to direct sunlight without that water buffer. And it's really hot outside. All of a sudden, you take all the water out, so now it's unprotected. And you let the sun beat down on it. It's going to crack. It's going to break. You're going to have damage to it.
Some of the blistering effect to start to occur on it.
Yeah. So we recommend you drain this when it's 85 degrees or less outside. You can push it maybe to 90, but really 85 is kind of that safe number. If you've missed that window now, you're gonna have to go through the season until the end of the season, or you could do like little partial drains overnight. It's kind of cumbersome, but you can drain like a tenth of the pool and then refill, and do that over and over and over again. So what's the easiest way to drain a pool? Because I know what customers say to me is, well, I'll just put it in backwash mode, or I'll hook a hose on top and just run my pump.
Yeah,
why would you not do that?
That's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make there. I mean,
unless you want to buy a pump.
Yeah, there you go. We can replaster pools and we can sell new pumps. So what you have actually in the swimming pool business is that that pump is actually hooked to the skimmer and to the main drain together, and there's an apparatus inside the skimmer. We won't get into a bunch of technical stuff here, but what will happen is as that water level starts dropping below the skimmer in that pool, your pump is going to start sucking in air.
Like putting a hole in a straw.
Absolutely. So, and that pump is a water-cooled pump. So that 5, 6, 7 variable speed pump, that's a $1,500 pump out there. For you to protect that investment, we always recommend to run a submersible pump.
Yes.
Or purchase a submersible pump.
If you drain it regularly, you can purchase it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to put that in there, deepest part of the pool, standard garden hose connection to it to get the water out of there, or some of those heavier duty pumps you can rent have actually hoses that come with it. You can dump it out.
Well, check with your local city, because some you can dump to the street, some you need to put into the black line.
Right.
Almost all of them require that any water you're draining out be chlorine neutral. That the pH be appropriate, and that you have no additional chemicals in there. Like, it's a good kind of thought is, if you were to dump it in your grass and it's going to kill your grass, don't drain it out into the street or the black line or wherever the city's telling you to dump it. It needs to be reasonably neutral water. And we do carry chlorine neutralizer if you needed to neutralize that.
Yep, absolutely.
once it's in, you need to keep an eye on it. I mean, the submersible pump will typically kick off when it's run out of water. It will leave like a little bit of water at the bottom. It can't get all of it. Not a big deal. Not all the TDSs are sitting in that tiny little puddle of water. Immediately get a hose in there. If you've got multiple hoses, great, do that. And fill that pool up. Do not turn the equipment on, so make sure that that timer is off, that you pull the trippers off, because you don't want that pump coming on when there's no water in the pool, because again, you'll be replacing that pump. So make sure the pump is off, the timer is off. Refill it until the water gets to about the middle of the skimmer. And then turn the pump on, let it prime, make sure you air bleed out all the air, and then get the water sample into your local Leslie's, and we'll test it. There's a series of chemicals you need to get into that water pretty quickly to get it safe to be swimmable and to be algae-free.
Yep, absolutely. And then a couple things too. When you have the pool drain, if you've got the time to do it here right now before season, I mean, there's a few things you can consider while draining. Are you looking to maybe paint the pool? So that's an option for you there while it is drained.
Acid wash it.
You could look at doing acid washes, tile cleans, a chlorine bath is very common as well, doing a chlorine bath there while it is drained. So kind of knocking out two birds with one stone. And another tip as well, make sure that you're not trying to look or inspect the pool while it's being drained via your pool light. It's very common. Your pool light is a water-cooled fixture, so if that thing is on while there's no water cooling it, it will explode, and then you will be buying a new light, a new lens, new gasket, and a new bulb out there. So just be careful with that out there.
I think we scared them. Broken light, broken pump, broken plaster.
Yep. But let's drain our pools. So appreciate you guys tuning in today on this segment of Leslie's Pool School Pro Tips. Please tune in next time, and we'll see you all real soon.
Thank you.